I have always imagined the unbounded excitement of Andrew as he arrived home to tell Simon Peter, "We have found the Messiah! We have found the Messiah!" When the text of the Gospel of John first engaged me, I was caught in the signs and wonders that accompanied Jesus' first days of public ministry and throughout the Gospel. It was a sign under a sycamore tree that seems to convince Nathanael and so many others of Jesus' identity. But Andrew was drawn to Jesus by his word and his character. Perhaps it is the expectation of some that leadership is exercised in signs and wonders, the flash and dash, the initial adulation and acclamation that these charismatic personality traits bring. Perhaps. But as Andrew is drawn by Jesus' word and expressed character, the prophet Isaiah lifts up a different expectation of the new monarch, the Messiah who is to come. "A shoot shall come out of the stump of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of its roots. The Spirit of the Lord shall rest on that one, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. That one's delight shall be in the fear of the Lord." Or a translation more accessible to my understanding is, "This one's delight is in the reverence of God." The anticipated Messiah's character was fulfilled in Christ. The qualities and character of leadership are clear in Isaiah and made flesh and real in Jesus. Wisdom and understanding, counsel and might, knowledge and the reverence of God. These virtues are to be nurtured in sustainable leadership. They keep focused on a vision and hope beyond the immediate dilemmas we face. They trust in the promises and presence of God. The key challenge is to keep focused on what God has promised and provided while understanding how that relates, inspires, and shapes the life of the community and the world. The further challenge of leadership is to counsel and might. A relational approach to leadership that is inclusive in igniting the imagination, worth, and work of others, hopefully all others, to have a place and a part in the enterprise. This is the challenge of counsel and the risk of an embracing invitation to be empowered by the Word and Spirit of God. Walter Fluker, in reflecting on the legacy of Howard Thurman in terms of ethical leadership, noted that a proper sense of self and the urge toward community is the proper and moral response to the love of God. This yields compassion at the level of forming the soul of character and requires the careful attention to the practices of integrity, empathy, and hope as the defining virtues of an ethical leader's life in community. It is my experience that folks yearn, like the disciple Andrew, to find the character of leadership that is found in Christ manifest in their own experience, and to nurture it in their own discipleship and leadership in the world. It was the second Sunday of Advent. I was preaching on the Matthew text. In the back pew sat a civil engineer. The blank back page of the bulletin often yielded schematics of highway construction drawn during the sermon. As the preacher, this frustrated me a bit. Well, more than a bit. I noticed as I ascended the pulpit some very intent work being drawn on the back page that Sunday. And I read the text about John the Baptist heralding the coming of Christ. The voice of one crying in the wilderness, "Prepare the way of the Lord, make straight his paths." In that moment, I realized that this passage was meant to lift up the back pew. I left my prepared sermon and began, "The first folks called to fulfill the new vision of God revealed in Jesus Christ were civil engineers." I thought for a moment we were going to have to call an ambulance to care for the whiplash as the eyes went from the paper up to the pulpit. "Prepare the way of the Lord, a highway for our God. Make it straight." As the service ended, my engineer had puddles in his eyes as we greeted each other. I had forgotten, in the midst of the politics and the wrangling and the frustration of working for the highway department, why I got into civil engineering in the first place. In the days that followed, we talked. And he shared with me that roads connect communities. They were used by Jesus and more effectively by Paul to spread the gospel, the good news. They bring economic benefit, hold communities together. He had reread the New Testament in a night and found renewal in the commission civil engineers had in building the sacred community. His last comment was, "They will even need us to design the footings for the New Jerusalem when it comes." In the weeks that followed, a reflection group was begun in the office at the highway department. It began with a Copt who had come from Egypt and a Methodist who had come from that town. And it grew to include many more, to reflect on the character and vocation of engineering, to deepen the knowledge of God's commission that quickened their shared wisdom and renewed hope for the greater purposes of their work in the economy of God.
Hello, my name is David Ahn, Administrative Coordinator for the Institute for Transforming Leaders and Communities. And I'd like to thank you for viewing this video and thank our members, our Garrett Evangelical Theological Seminary community, and the initial grant from the Ministerial Education Fund to make ITLC possible. If you're considering or like to support the Institute, please click on the link located to the right, fill out your information, and be sure to restrict your gift to ITLC in the space provided, followed by the amount. Again, thank you for viewing our video and for your support.